Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Wellness by Design today. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer. And today I'm doing a solo episode. I want to talk about the stress of news and how it affects your well being, and also some strategies on how to not get stressed by the news, but also stay informed. So, welcome to the show today. Um, this is a subject that I have found so interesting with clients. Sometimes I know that stress has a huge impact on our health. And I always found it interesting and that people are so drawn to media, to the news. They can't stop watching it. Some people have it on all day. And it really colors your perception of the world. But not only that, it has like a physical, visceral impact on your body. So, yeah, it affects us on a mental level, it affects us on a physical level. So I noticed when I've been traveling, because I rarely watch the news, and when I'm traveling and out in sort of public places, it's screens are turned on or you see everybody looking at their devices, and I just think, "Oh, it adds to, people's fear," and, so what I wanted to show you today is hopefully help you understand how it impacts your health and how, uh, hopefully that will motivate you to want to some other strategies for how you can stay informed, but not be taking in the news, or choose how you're going to take it in, because that makes a big difference too. So let's just first of all talk about why we watch the news. So the thing is that most news is not good news. Uh, Good news doesn't really sell in the same way because it doesn't draw our attention the same way. We are naturally wired in our brain to pay attention to things that invoke a fear response, which is also the stress response. So why are we wired to pay attention to these things that cause fear in us? Because way back when that meant preservation, right? We are wired to preserve our life. And so whenever there are things that are fearful, our brain like hones in on it and pays attention. So we do want to stay informed, but we want to understand that news is a product that's for sale. Okay. We don't normally think of it that way, but us tuning into the news, the organizations that are supplying that news, that is their product. Now, I'm sure they also do want to keep people informed, but there are there are tactics that are used to help us, help connect us with that fear. Movie makers know this, so this is something a little bit different, although I do want to talk about that as well. Movie makers understand how to elicit that fear response, right? They'll play music, the lighting will change, all of this stuff that's designed to help draw us in because they want us drawn in, right? They want us drawn in. So we are wired to pay attention to potential threats, and visual images are especially powerful because the images like draw us into the scene. Our brains cannot tell the difference between something that we're seeing visually, like in front of us, we're actually there, or that we're seeing it on a screen. So it's the images have a very have an impact, more powerful impact on our brains. So the thing is that when we feel fear, when we're watching things that elicit that fear response, or even reading can do it as well, then we are invoking that stress response. So let's just talk about the stress response for a few minutes. So you probably, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you know I often talk about the stress response, and the response of our nervous system can either be in the fight, flight, fear state called the stress response, or it can be in the rest, digest, repair, rejuvenate state. I would call that the normal state. That is where we should be. When we are in that state, our systems work like they're supposed to. Digestion works, we sleep okay, reproductive systems work well, all of our immune system, everything works well because it's just like, okay, life is good. We just got to run our normal systems, protect ourselves from viruses and bacteria, digest our food, do it well. So it's sort of like that is how we are supposed to be. Sleep and sleep well. When we are in the fight, flight, fear state, our brain is sending signals to our body to say, this could be a life or death situation. Like, forget about fighting off long term things like bacteria and viruses. We might need to run from a tiger right now, right? It's kind of that thing. All the blood goes out to our major muscles so that we can be prepared to run. We do shallow breathing. We don't sleep well because we need to stay on alert for danger. We aren't ready to reproduce because, hey, that's a long-term thing and we just need to worry about our own life right now. We don't digest our food very well, which means we don't get our nutrients. And then all of this when it goes on for a long period of time, because it's okay to have stress response for a short period of time, that does protect us, right, from danger. But when it's going on for a long period of time, then systems begin to break down. And eventually, we see signs of chronic conditions, and that can lead to chronic illnesses and chronic pain and all these chronic things that we know so well: diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, cancers, autoimmune conditions, because our immune system isn't working well. So just we don't want to constantly be in that stress response. We can't heal like that. So I work with a lot of people in my programs. We're talking about healing. I specifically talk about it as providing the environment in which your body can heal. Something I say a lot, right? The environment in which our body can heal is not the stress response. Can't heal like that. We have to be in the relaxation response. So the other words for these, the stress response is the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, and the relaxation response is the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. Okay, so the parasympathetic is good. That's what we want. So, so what happens, coming back to the news and why you should care, especially if you've got one of these chronic conditions or just kind of in general, if we're constantly tuning into the news, then we're constantly in that stress response, right? Eventually things break down. You cannot heal. If you've got pain, you will stay in pain. You cannot heal when your body thinks it's in danger. Okay, when the mind sends a message to the body that it's in danger. That is not an environment in which our body can heal. Now, even small bits. So this is, I think people understand, okay, if I watch news all day, it's probably not good for me, but I can't help it. You can't help it because your brain says, pay attention to danger. Okay. So it's kind of like the more you watch it, the more the brain's like, pay attention, pay attention. It's really hard to kick the news habit. But I say it's something that you need to do if you want to heal. It's something that you need to do if you want to be healthy. Okay. You need to control how much information is going to your brain and telling your brain you're in danger. Okay. Because most of us actually, in this moment, in this present moment, like if you're watching this, you're probably, or listening to this, you're probably not like in a war zone. So you're probably not in danger. I know that isn't the same for everybody in the world. And we're going to talk about that in a minute and something that we can do. But most of us are not in immediate danger. So coming back to that present moment and a little reminder that we are not in danger is helpful. But I want you to understand that even just when you tune in, for a short while, immediately your cortisol levels will be raised. So they're raised for, especially like for 15 minutes after the onset. And then they're elevated. It takes like several hours for the body to, I would say, metabolize, to dissipate that cortisol out of the body. So just like watching it and triggering that stress response, your hours before that cortisol is clear. What does cortisol do? Well, it's a chemical of stress. You will have weight gain. Your all of your systems will not be working well because the whole body thinks it's in danger. It's a chemical that announces danger. Okay? So, it stays in your body for several hours. So you can imagine if you got that TV on, or if you're constantly checking in on the news on your phone, you can be eliciting that stress response, and the cortisol just stays elevated in your body. Can also lead to diabetes, like so many things. Cortisol, it's good in the short term, right? It has its purpose in the short term, but we don't want it elevated all the time. That leads to disease in the body. So here's what I do. I do want to know what's going on in the world, but I try to do it in a way that's not going to elicit the stress response all the time. So number one is I just read it, or I listen to like a podcast about the news. I will just read or listen. I I would say almost never watch. I Because the visual images are so much more powerful, have a more powerful impact on our brain. I don't want to see those visual images, and it's not to remain ignorant. It's like for self-preservation. So I read or listen rather than watch videos or even look at pictures. If there's pictures in the news when I'm reading, I just try to like scroll through really quickly so I don't see it. Um, I also don't tune in every day. Um, if there's something going on, we'll probably hear about it from someone. Like if there's something immediate that we really need to know about, we'll probably hear from someone. But I don't want to tune in every day because I don't want to be elevating those cortisol levels every single day if I can avoid it, right? So once a week is fine now, and sometimes it may need to be more often. And depending on where you are, like if you are coming from a place now where you're watching the news all day long, then tuning in once a week is going to be too big a jump for you. So this is what I do, but I've been doing this for years. Even like with all of these world events that are going on, we feel like it's really impacting us. But sometimes I even remind myself, and I remind like my clients and people I work with, in this moment, I'm safe. In this moment, I'm safe. We want to send the message of safety, not a message of danger. So, especially if you're trying to heal your body, please, please try to send that message of safety as much as possible. So I try to limit it to once a week. And then there may be special circumstances where I might want to tune in a bit more closely, perhaps if it's affecting like a close family member. For example, right now I have a family member that is in the Middle East, and so that's a little bit concerning, right? So I'm going to tune in a little bit more. Um, when we were all, under in COVID and under lockdown, we are kind of tuning in a little bit more. But as time went on, I realized I don't need to tune in every day. I really don't need to tune in every day. There was a lot of sensationalized news at that point. Because here's a thing that fear can really uh, take a whole population and make us kind of submit. This is what has been done by a lot of leaders who wanted to gain power. They will try to elicit fear, and then people become more submissive, right? Because they're just like so worried for their life. So keep reminding ourselves that we are safe. Like I'm safe in this moment. So that's what I try to do. So sometimes I might need to tune in a little bit more, but I do when I do that, try to have a time where I'm going to take some breaths afterwards and some reminders like in this moment I'm safe. Everything is good in my world. That kind of thing. Again, I'm just trying to get those cortisol levels down as quickly as possible. So I'd like for you to have a think now, like what are your news consumption patterns? How do you take in your news? Do you watch it? Do you listen to it? How often are you watching or listening, or do you read? Um, what I'd love to hear from you if you want to share in the comments. What are your news consumption patterns? And based on what I've talked about, are you willing to experiment with either changing and or lessening your news consumption? So I'd love to hear, are you going to change anything perhaps? Um, I remember having a client that would watch the news while they were eating. And I said, Can you it felt like she said, "I can't turn the news off. We gotta have it on." They were just so used to having it. So a baby step for them would be, let's just turn it off while we're eating. When we're eating, we want to be in a calm state. Otherwise, we're not even, well, I should say eating and digesting. When we're eating and digesting, we want to be in a calm state so that we can get the nutrients from the food that we're eating. If we're not in a calm state, digestion doesn't work well. We don't break down the food very well. We don't absorb the nutrients very well. So at least that. So if that is your baby step, and it may even be a big step for you, but maybe that's your baby step. Maybe for someone else, the baby step might be, I'm not going to watch it anymore. I'm just going to read or listen to it. Someone else might be, well, I'm not going to watch it right before I go to bed. So here's another thing when we're going to bed at night, that's our rest time. So if you look at the news right before you go to bed or read the news right before you go to bed, then you're eliciting that stress response, cortisol. Cortisol certainly doesn't allow us to sleep very well, right? Because cortisol is danger. Pay attention. So you'll probably have a fitful kind of sleep. So if you are trying to improve your sleep, then maybe you might want to prioritize not tuning into news, either watching it or reading it right before going to bed. We want to do everything we can to get a good rest because that's where everything gets replenished. That's where the healing happens. So, yeah. So, do you have an idea for what you might do? Maybe you might be ready to say, I'm just going to basically tune in once a week. Pick a day that you're going to tune in. And believe me, I've been doing that for a long time. And you do hear about stuff, you kind of don't even really try, and people will mention things or it'll pop up in the news feed and social media, that kind of thing. So, you will still hear about things, trust me. And if there's anything major going on, you will hear about it. So you might think, I know some people may just worry that, well, I don't want to not be informed. So again, limit it, choose how you're going to do it, choose to do it maybe through reading or listening instead of watching. That way you can stay attuned. And here's another experiment. If you feel like any of these things are a little bit too much right now, I would just encourage you, first of all, to notice how you feel. So this requires like awareness and intention. So notice before you start taking in the news, how do I feel right now? And then notice watching the news or consuming the news. Notice how you feel. Do you notice, like, is your heart rate going up? Are you breathing more shallow, like into the chest instead of into the belly? Do you feel nervous? Like, is it eliciting anxiety? How do you feel? Notice how you feel. And that may help motivate you to cut back as well. All right. I would like to, I'm also going to just make another little point too and say, I'm talking about news specifically today, but this also applies to anything that elicits that fear response. So I talked about movies earlier, And so movies, I don't even watch scary movies anymore or just movies I used to love watching scary movies and just go, yeah, it's not even real. But it does still elevate your cortisol levels. I don't like to read books anymore that are like crime or anything like that. I just don't want to do that. It's not serving me on my purpose for wellness. It's not serving me on my purpose to elevate my own emotions so that I can help other people. So just like maybe look at what else are you consuming that might be putting you into a stress response. So some people feel like, well, what can I do? And I feel this too. If we feel helpless when we are here and we know that people in other parts of the world are suffering, that they are in real danger, they've been injured, they've lost family members, they've been subjected to acts of terrorism. So, what, even talking about this now, I can feel my cortisol, my breath, my heart rate increasing, my breath getting more shallow. So, I want to share with you something that I like to do, and I invite you to do this with me. If you're driving, just pause this and you can do it after you're driving because I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. So let's just do this together. I want to give you a tool to help create peace in yourself and also to send peace out to other people. And don't underestimate the power of this. Every one of us, you've heard me talk about this before, we're all energy, we're vibration. We're always sending out a vibration. And when enough people can send out a loving, healing, peaceful vibration, it does have a ripple effect in the world. So don't underestimate what one person can do. I remember when my daughter, Kelsey, gave a speech for Peace Week that the YMCA was holding this little speak off thing. And I think she was quite young at the time. And I don't know where she got this, but I think it was a quote from someone, but I can't remember who. But it was, if it's to be, it starts with me. I just love that. If it's to be, it starts with me. So if we want peace in the world, it starts with creating peace in ourselves. Okay, so let's take a few minutes now and let's just do this together. So invite you to put your hands on your heart. And then wherever you are, just gently close your eyes. Big breath into the belly and then slowly release it. Notice your breath as you breathe in deeply into the belly and then gently and slowly release it. Notice the sound and the feel of your breath as you slowly and deeply inhale and exhale. And now I'd like you to think about a time when you felt peaceful or you felt love. Bring it to mind now. Where were you? Look around. What do you see? Who else is there? What do you hear? Notice the colors, the details, and the sounds. Notice the feeling, that feeling of love and peace. Notice that you can feel it in your heart. It may feel tiny or it may feel quite big. And then breathe in, and with every inhale, imagine that feeling is expanding. With that feeling, let's set an intention of holding space and an intention for peace, starting with you. And imagine now, maybe you even want to put your hands out in front of you. Imagine that this feeling is expanding out from you to the people you know in your life, family, friends. Imagine it's expanding even bigger, expanding out to your whole community. Expanding all around you in every direction, filling the area where you live, country where you live. Imagine how it's expanding even further and filling the whole world. And let's hold an intention for all the people in the world that are hurt or scared or grieving. Let them feel comforted by this great wave of love and peace and connection being sent to them. And for the people that are in conflict, let's set an intention to them from us for understanding and compassion and peaceful resolution for all involved. Let's send that intention out. Breathing as you do. Notice if any images are coming to mind. And if anything does, imagine that you're sending that love and compassion and peace. And if no images come to mind, that's okay too. Just feel love and compassion and peace. And now bring your hands back to your heart again. Notice the peace that you feel now. The last inhale and exhale. And slowly, very slowly and gently, whenever you're ready, you can stay here for a while if you'd like to. Just pause. If you're ready to come back to the present moment and into your space with me now, then just slowly now open your eyes. And I'd love to know, do you feel more peaceful? Do you notice the peace that you're feeling now? So you can do this anytime and know that if it's to be, it starts with me. So you creating peace has a ripple effect out in the world. There is something you can do, something I can do, something all of us can do. more often we can create peace within ourselves, the more we spread that out in the world as well. So you can do it by holding that intention. You can also do it by choosing how and when to consume the news in a way that helps you stay peaceful. I feel better. And you know what we know is that when we do something for other people, so we're doing something just then, creating peace for other people in the world, it has an impact on us as well. So we feel more peaceful. So we do it for ourselves, but we also do it for other people, and then we also do it for ourselves. So there we go. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope this helps give you a new perspective on how you consume the news, how it impacts your health, how it impacts your personal health, the health of your community, and the health of the world, and that we can, each one of us, have a small impact which then turns into a big impact, and it can ripple out. So if you are listening to this, and perhaps you might want to tune in to my YouTube channel so you can watch. You may also, if you're watching, want to listen on the run, maybe when you're out for a walk or when you're driving. You can listen to this podcast on any the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. And if you know someone that needs to hear this, please share this with them. And I'd love if you left a comment or a review, give me a thumbs up. It helps this content reach more people. And that's another way that we can have a ripple effect in the world. Okay, my friends, I'll see you again next week. I've got some great guests coming up for you. I'm really excited about the content that I've got for you that helps empower you in your health. That's what it's all about. It's about empowering you to become the version of yourself that allows healing to happen. Create that environment that allows your body to heal. So, what's one thing you can do today? My suggestion for today is that you lessen your news consumption. So, be intentional about your news consumption and notice the effect that it's having on you. Okay, my friends, we'll see you again next week. Talk soon.